All right, our notes tonight are about the amendment process. So far, we've looked at sort of how the Constitution is set up and what the structure of it is. And so tonight, we're going to take a closer look at what the process is for formally changing the Constitution. So, before we get into it, let's think for a minute about, kind of why the Constitution is needed to be changed. Well, some things that have happened over time because of amendments that were not really part of the original Constitution included a lot of things I think you might be surprised by. For example, your right to free speech and your right to assemble and speak your mind was not in the original Constitution. The right to free press was not in the original Constitution. Your right to a trial by jury, the right of African Americans to vote, for women to vote, for 18 to 20-year-olds to vote. These are all things that were not in the original Constitution. They were things that were added over time. So why are amendments necessary? That's kind of an important question to get at here. Why do we even need amendments for the Constitution? Well, the framers, the guys who wrote the Constitution, designed it as a blueprint. It's a guideline. It gives the basic structure for the government, but they knew that it wouldn't cover every possible question about the government or every problem that might ever arise. These were smart guys that understood that the Constitution needed to have some flexibility. They knew that the Constitution would have to change over time. As the nation changed, as the nation grew bigger, as we moved into the future, these guys understood that the Constitution needed to be able to change and grow with the country. So they put in a process where we could change the Constitution to meet the needs of the time. Now, they also made that process very difficult. So, another important question is, well, why did they do it that way? If we need to be able to change the Constitution, why is it such a hard process to do? Well, it's because they did want flexibility, but they also wanted stability. They knew the Constitution needed to change, but they didn't want it changing all the time. They wanted it to stand the test of time and be stable and last. So the framers intentionally made it difficult to change. Not impossible, but difficult. And because it is so hard to change the Constitution, this helps to make sure that any changes that we do make are taken very, very seriously. It makes sure that one political party can't easily change the Constitution to fit what they want. Right? So just because the Republicans win an election doesn't mean they're going to be able to just go in and change the Constitution to benefit themselves. It's harder to do than that. It also makes sure that the states and the national government have to work together and agree that it's a good change, because if either one of those groups doesn't like it, it's not going to get through. And this has worked really well. Over the course of the 200 plus years the Constitution has been in effect, there have been over 11,000 suggested amendments. And of those, we have only changed the Constitution 27 times, which is pretty impressive, especially when you think that the first 10 were passed like right away, the Bill of Rights. So really, from 1800 on, we've really only changed the Constitution about 17 times. So how does it work? Well, this is a visual that's in the textbook, and it shows that there's actually 4 different paths that an amendment could take to get to being a part of the Constitution. But we are going to really focus on only one, because of the 27 amendments, all but one have followed the exact same path. An amendment first has to be proposed by Congress. So someone is going to suggest an amendment in Congress, and in order to be officially proposed, it has to pass a 2/3 vote of both the House and the Senate. So that's already going to be really hard to do. It's hard to get 2/3 of the House or the Senate to agree on anything, much less to agree on something that's going to be so important. So it has to go through 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate. And that is just to get it proposed. If it makes it through Congress, it then has to go to the states. And it has to be approved or ratified by the states. And it takes 3/4 of the state legislatures to approve an amendment in order for it to be added to the Constitution. Okay, so that's something like 37 of the states need to approve a proposed amendment. And again, if it doesn't get to that amount, it's not going to get added to the Constitution. It's a very difficult process. And this is an example of our federal system at work. So we have, the national government involved through Congress, and we also have the state governments involved. So there's federalism at work. The national government proposes the amendment, and then the state governments have to approve it. And both sides are required. Any changes have got to be approved by both the states and the national government. Important to note here too that the president is not involved anywhere in this process. So the president and the Supreme Court cannot do anything to block an amendment, right? The president can't veto it. The Supreme Court can't call it unconstitutional. That this is entirely based on federalism. That Congress proposes amendments and the states have to approve it.